Hey kids, it's me, Jurassic James. And on this Jurassic James Explains, we talk Dimetrodon. And as usual, the models are older to younger. And the first thing I'm going to point out with this guy here is our first Dimetrodon. Uh, the early models like this, very simple, of course. The idea is you're baking a pack of toys, you put in long neck, horn dinosaur, probably Triceratops, T-Rex, so on. And this stands out. But it turns out Dimetrodon is not actually a dinosaur. And I'll go over why and how later on. The main thing is that it's a prehistoric creature, so people say, well, it's prehistoric. The word dinosaur and prehistoric in the popular zeitgeist is kind of equal, but it predates the first dinosaur by like 40 million years. So this early model has good sail shape, tail's pretty nice. The arms and legs are correct; they are out to the side. That's a really big deal. It wasn't a dinosaur that walked like in fact under his body. This guy would have laid down, got up, walked, and then laid down again. It wouldn't have actually been upright like a bird or a mammal. The head, kind of a problem there. It should be more narrow overall. If you see a Dodon skull, it's very, very narrow and long. This is kind of truncated, and the jaw kind of turns down. So other than that, it's pretty good for what it is at this time. Next, I have the Play School Dimetrodon. And again, this is, you say, what's the big deal? Is that, this is the first time people are often exposed to dinosaurs. I mean, even before going to a museum or getting a book, you might see a toy through the store. And the first thing I want to point out with this guy is he has 5 toes and 5 fingers, which is a big deal, the number of toes and fingers on these models. It perplexes me. But how do I know that? Well, I've actually held a Dimetrodon footprint cat in my hand. I know that it has 5 fingers and toes. The legs are out to the side, that's correct. The tail is pretty good shape. Skull, again, very wide. The tail is short, and that's kind of fun because when they were first dug up, they didn't quite find tailbones. So for a long time, we weren't sure how the tail looked, what was going on. They found one more recently, but some of the early sketches, you'll see a really short tail, basically. So that kind of shows this here. The next one is the Tycho, Dino Riders. Now, I know we saw in the Transformers movie, Optimus Prime riding a T-Rex named Grimlock. Well, I mean, the idea of riding prehistoric creatures to battle was actually an 80s or early 90s thing. So this is that guy. If you have a little biting action, his arms, again, out to the side. 5 toes. The toes are of close to equal length. They were different lengths for the most part. The sail, again, pretty prominent there. Smaller tail. Skull is more narrow, not as narrow as it should be, but getting close to that. Eyes are set back. So this is actually a more accurate model given what it is. The next guy I have, I don't know. He was a rescue. I don't know where he came from. He was there. They're like, we're getting rid of this, and I took it in. But again, for a basic model, pretty good. The cell goes up like this. The scale is too wide, of course. The teeth are all uniform, little pegs here, and that's the big thing. Dimetrodon means two-shaped tooth, and I mean, if you ever see one, it doesn't have a canine, like a proto canine sticking down, which we'll see in later models. But overall, like I said, not knowing what you're doing, you're making this model. It's close enough. Arms are out to the side. The tail's pretty decent. The torso is pretty long, which is good. I like that. A lot of times you see them with these kind of truncated guts, but they're more elongated than like a dinosaur would be. Then 1993 rolls around, and we have Jurassic Park. And of course, here is the general Jurassic Park model. Now, even though it's for like dino activity or dino stuff, this leg going out to the side is designed for the jaw to move. But the fact that it's kind of going out is kind of actually pretty accurate. Where the other leg is kind of going straight down, like that. It's not correct, but overall, the cell shape depends on the individual species, but there are actually multiple species. The names like T-Rex and Triceratops are actually genres or genus. There's multiple species of Dimetrodon, but this shaped cell is not quite what we see lined up most. And like any good toy company, you make repaints, and like any good fan, you buy them. So when I was a kid, I would actually have this be like different, male and female for, even though the dinosaurs Jurassic Park are all female. But of course, when the part goes wrong and they started making males, or males happened. So the idea is that I would have both, same thing, same model, same design. The next figure is one that's really, really, it's actually one of my first, it's not my first Dimetrodon model, really, other than the tiny guy. And what made me most confused about this guy is on his tail, it says Metracanthosaurus. Now, the reason that's so important to me is that obviously it's supposed to be a Dimetrodon. I mean, all the parts are there, even though they're not entirely accurate. But if you go to mid-Jurassic Europe, there's an animal called Metracanthosaurus, and it looks like this. And what you can't quite tell is that there's like these little ridge there, I got like a little tiny cell. So I'm guessing that the makers, even though Dimetrodon was like way more well known, just said, "Hey, cell, same thing," but they're not. One's a theropod dinosaur, one's a synapsid Dimetrodon. But I don't know, that was something that was really upsetting. I remember my first blog was about that. It's like, how can these toys be wrong, you know? So yeah. But and if you're wondering, these shells are based like on like the Morrison Formation, Lake Cretaceous, and you know, in North America, they're in the Hell Creek, you know. So they actually are in order. Put you back there. But the main thing to point out, this guy, really wide gut. Again, it's something that you would see more than herbivore. I mean, but it is laying on the stomach, which is nice. The arms are out to the side. Skull, again, not as narrow as it should be. The eyes have these huge ridges on the side. It's not quite accurate. There's a dewlap here that, to my understanding, there's no proof of that existing to date. But again, they're still digging. Also want to point out the teeth are pretty generic, again, for the model type. What I don't like really are the feet and the hands themselves. They are very elephantine with a hard ankle, like they're walking with very short. They have longer toes. If you actually see a skeleton one's very long, like our hand almost. Not a thumb though. First toe though. But the idea is that they have kind of like this design, which I think they're calling on a dinosaur, you know, tall stand. But then this model it actually was changed to Dimetrodon, different, not this one. It's mold years later. But fun example. Dinosaur Valley was I found it in Toys R Us. This guy here, what makes me most concerned, I mean, the short tail is great. The cell design's pretty good. The arms is doing this like, so the assumption would be that this is like an attack or defense or something. This is caught in the action kind of thing. They could not normally do that level of rotational up push like that. I mean, maybe like just a second, but not like this. So I'm guessing that's the goal here. Have 5 fingers and 5 toes. That's still good. Here you have the canine, or sorry, proto-canine. It's like right there, and that is cool because it's the first one I have that actually shows that. And the reason it's so important to me is that in 2013, I was digging in Seymour, Texas. If you ever go there, there's a museum called the Whiteside Museum. Go there, it's really cool. And I was digging, and Dr. Bacher was there, and I found my first Dimetrodon find was a big tooth. And Dr. Bacher, who was my hero growing up, I would sit and watch him on TV with my toys. I had less back then, in a semicircle at the theater, and I'd watch him on TV in this show called Paleo World. So I was digging with him, and I found a Dimetrodon tooth, and he gave me the nickname Fang, and I was excited about that. But anyway, so that's a very important feature for the animal too. So it means it's one of the differentiating things. In fact, the name is Dimetrodon. Di is in dissection, you know, two. Metrio is a shape. Don, dentist tooth. So it's 2 shaped teeth. Now, in truth, there's actually, in the real animal, there's not. It's more than 2 kind of shaped teeth. The front teeth, what we call incisors and us. The incisors, like scissors they cut. They are slightly one shaped. The proto-canines one shape. And the teeth back were still kind of different, so that makes it stand out, which is why people say, or paleontologists say, it's connected to mammals. You know, dinosaurs have the same tooth for the most part all the way through, except for, of course, those Heterodaptosauruses, whose names imply they're different kind of teeth, but, you know, Dimetrodon had that one feature, so it's one of the things we kind of tie it to us, basically. Next, this guy here, I feel is like the upgrade of this. The problem with that is, one, the skull is really good. It's very narrow, actually. It should kind of go down more, but, you know. The teeth are visible. They're, you know, kind of etched in there. The feet are elephantine, again, a very tight pack, which is not quite the way it works. The tail's pretty good. But what makes me annoyed by this one is the sail. So, Dimetrodon, they all have had these neural spines, these little things going out here. If you feel your back, these little bumps there, that's a neural spine. This goes up for like 3 feet for these guys. And this one seems to have given up the neural spines for like just a fan on the back of just skin. There's no real neural spine divine there. And that's weird. But anyway, this guy's pretty cool. Year 2000 model, you know, like that. I mentioned 2013 digging in Seymour. That year, I remember going to the museum gift shop and seeing this Dimetrodon model. And at the time, like, this is the most accurate one. It has the canine tooth, the notch right there. The cell's pretty good. The arms and legs are out to the side. So excited about that. The tail's pretty decent. Everything. This is a good model. My only concern, of course, is Papo. And Papo, one of the big companies, really like Papo a lot, actually. I have a lot of Papo in here. But my only concern is this: they have 5 fingers and 5 toes. In real life, this one has 5 fingers and 4 toes, and I don't know why. Because, well, here's some fun stories. Fun fact: crocodiles and alligators actually have 5 fingers and 4 toes, and frogs actually have 5 toes and 4 fingers. Is that really relevant here? No, but now you know that. But the thing is, I think they may have just based it on a crocodile. But here's the problem: crocodiles are archosaur reptiles. They're reptiles, where the synapsids are a different branch. In fact, you are a synapsid. There's a bone right here that makes you a synapsid. We share with Dimetrodons to a degree, so that's why we are branched in one way, and reptiles are a different way. So the crocodile, I think it's just like an aesthetic thing. They didn't really consult it. I don't know the detail. I'm not, not a toy designer. But this next guy, I don't. I think it was like a Big Lots or somewhere. I just saw him there and like, cool, big Dimetrodon, grab it. Very, it's a foam figure, so it's a little bit more not, more kid friendly. But 5 fingers, 5 toes is doing this kind of like thing. It's like kind of neat. But again, that kind of articulation is kind of the push is pushing this arm here, particularly going under it to support, which may be more of an engineering design, but that kind of mobility may not have been the norm for the animal. But overall, again, best thing ever, canine teeth, the big canine, proto-canine tooth. So that's pretty good, actually. But then, the last thing I bought from Toys R Us before it closed was this guy here. And this guy has the 5 fingers, 5 toes. The skull should be more narrow, but the skull shape, the notch going up there and going down, that's really great. Cell's pretty good, too. So this one's actually pretty good. And this one, I believe, if it is Popo or Schlee, the lighting is great here. But the idea is that this guy is pretty decent for what it is. And then I had a birthday, and my boss at my job bought us made a cake, and we all ate it. And this was in there. And he goes, "What kind of dinosaur is that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not a dinosaur." But given what it is, it's a pretty decent model. The skin texture, that's I know of. There's no Dimetrodon skin texture I'm aware of. But so this is all kind of a guess. And it's not like we're looking at dinosaur skin where we see scale and prints and things. There's nothing for these guys. And again, they're a different lineage, so we can't assume it'd be like dinosaurs. But again, 5 fingers and 5 toes, that's good. That's, apparently was very hard. Tail being very narrow. And that kind of hints the mammal connection that, again, these are not mammals. Like, assuming you're human, we're mammals. But that smaller tail, not the big archosaur, reptilian, crocodile tail, just very, very small, kind of tail like that, simply see. But in Dinosaur Park in Bastrop, I bought this guy. And again, two things. One, I like the skull is narrow enough. That's great. Two, the way it's shaped, really awesome. 5 fingers, 5 toes, small tail. This is like great. Now, one thing I want to point out is that the sail doesn't go all the way in the neural spine. There's a paper that came out, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, since this is being recorded, and it suggested that. So, that's new information, not proven, but just an idea out there. One thing that, again, we can't prove, but the skin is really cool in this model. I like it a lot, actually. It's just neat to look at, even though, I hate that this sounds bad, but if you don't know the answer, go with cool until we say not a thing. But really cool guys with Safari. Safari's one of the older companies. My first scientific models were like Safari back in the 90s when I was a kid. But it was the 90s. For those of you who were born in 2000s, it was last century. Yeah. So the time before Xbox. So really good model, very accurate, and really cool just to look at overall. Everything's great. Do know too, the sail does not, it's just sticking up. You cannot lay it down. I know that's a question I get a lot in tours. If they can move around, like, no, it's just under there, it's moving around. But yeah, it's a really cool thing. And last but not least, I have my Jurassic World Dimetrodon, which, if you do the thing, the tail movement, small tail, the skull has these little ridges here, which is like interesting. I haven't quite seen that in other Dimetrodons, but I haven't seen it. So the bite, pretty cool. Biggest problem, 3 toes, 3 fingers in each hand. Like, why would you go backwards? Like, for at least 30 years, we've had this down. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it the right way. And that's really annoying. The skin's really cool, too. Not that it's scientifically accurate, it's just nice looking skin on this animal. But, it had a very Komodo dragon kind of look to it, actually, but which is not related. Those are also reptiles, not Dimetrodons. But anyway, really cool model. So, big thing to point out the animal itself is the cell. Because people always look at the cell and say, how do you, what is it for? And the question always is, if it's that big, it's important to the animal's lifestyle. So I always ask kids, what do you think the cell's for? And they'll say sailing or defense or other things. And I say, the sailing idea was an early idea, and it was thought that these guys would like stay near like water and they'd run and then jump in the water and use their sail like boats. And that idea kind of died, but it was really cool. Not accurate, but it's cool. Another idea, of course, is defense. And you say, wait a minute, how could it be defense? It's not very strong. And the question is, what if a Tyrannosaurus Rex bit it? But a reminder, this is the early Permian. T-Rex lived in the late Cretaceous period. There were no dinosaurs at this time. This was the T-Rex of the land as far as ecology goes. So it was the biggest animal there. So that would have been an issue. But the thing is, the sail is really tall. So I ask the question of you, when you're angry, what color do you turn? The answer is usually red. And when someone's cute, what color do you turn? The answer is usually red or pink. Well, this bright red sail has a very warning sign. I mean, people get angry, they turn red. I've had people I've met and interacted with who got mad and they turn red, and that's very scary if you know what it means. But it also segues to my second point, mate selection, which I know at your age, most of you being kids, dating's wrong until you're 30. Know that, because you just wait. But the idea here is the bright red color can also ward off rivals and attract mates. So that's something to point out, because it's kind of like the red dress kind of thing, or a red sports car kind of gets your attention. Same part of your brain there, actually. And of course, the last thing is temperature control. And the importance of that is that not only Dimetrodon, but other animals in the environment have cells. So that kind of indicates that there are different lineages involving cells too. So it must be important. And the example I give is Asian elephants have very small ears, and African have very big ears, and they flap their ears and cool off like a few degrees, right? And I imagine your car during the summer and winter, wherever you live. Here in Houston, we don't really get either. Well, it's continually summer, But the idea is that the sail can, give off heat like that, because we always wonder about animals being cold-blooded or warm-blooded, and again, I think pretty much everyone in paleontology is like, these are cold-blooded or ectodermic temperature of their bodies. It changes a lot, like that. Very slow motion environment compared to like the African savanna of, So that's the thing with Dimetrodon as far as its overall design and the models that show it. Now, one last thing to go over. When looking at any animal, it is not a vacuum. Like if I took you and like studied you as a science person, like, hey, what's going on here? You would be like, I'm just a person who live here, but I need to know your environment to understand you. So in the early Permian, we think of Permian as like the oil, which you're in Texas, the oil basin, Exxon, all those things. But that part is actually further west than where they're found. Where they're found is essentially the coastline, the coastal plain. So, first of all, I want to point out a neighbor of theirs, called Dilophosaurus. Now you're saying, wait a minute, that looks familiar. Well, they took, this guy, Metriacanthosaurus, remember that Rome name? And they made it into a Dimetrodon, and then they were like, wait a minute, that's good. But then someone said, how about we go further? And they called it Dilophosaurus. And Dilophosaurus is a sailed cousin of Dimetrodon that was an herbivore. Now the problem with that, it'll have its own video. I'll get a better model pretty soon. But the head was a lot smaller. The sail would have went like that, not so much just like this. So this is not a Dilophosaurus by design, but it's labeled as such, which is why I'm concerned about the fact that people put the wrong, Anyway, but big picture. So Dimetrodon is living in this environment, and Dilophosaurus are found in either the forest or near fast-moving rivers. And the idea is that when a Dimetrodon would show up, the Dilophosaurus would see it, and if it could hide in the forest, it would. And if it could run to the river and jump in, its large tail would help it swim away. And I remember I was thinking about the locker, we were looking for Dilophosaurus bones in the Paleo River. So what's a Paleo River? Should you find that? We have modern rivers. A Paleo River is a river of the past, as in paleontology. And you see where this once was a river there. So the rocks are different. So instead of seeing like, certain silt and clay, you see sand and pebbles. So you're seeing the river was once there. So they found some of their bones in the river, which means the Dimetrodon would chase them in the river and they'd swim away, kind of thing. That's Dr. Barker's theory. So one thing to point out too is what else are they eating or trying to eat. There's a guy or gal or thing called Diplodocus, a double beam lizard. So double tail. Sorry, I'm thinking Diplodocus is Diplodocus. So these guys, we know they ate them because we actually found a Dimetrodon in Museum of Natural Science in Houston with a bite mark on the nose from a Dimetrodon. So like that's a smoking gun. But that's like the best thing ever to find that and see that. Another prey item we see are freshwater sharks called xenocaths. Now the word xenocath means foreign spine. So like xenomorph, like the aliens. Zeta calf, they have a spine here over their head. Some minor shark species have over their dorsal fin. So, and they are freshwater sharks, which is cool. The only freshwater sharks today that I'm aware of are bull sharks can tolerate it. And somewhere in Panama, there's a lake with some bull sharks who are like trapped. And now they live in freshwater. Kind of a weird thing, but unusual. But these are freshwater sharks. And think like bears, they're in the rivers, the shallow rivers, and these guys walk up and they're trying to catch them in the water and they get stabbed in the face. It's a whole thing. And the spines can be up like this big. I've seen some that like that big. So these are pretty big sharks, actually. So we know they actually eat these guys. And as far as ecology goes, we have a couple other things. One, there is this guy named Euryalps. It's a very famous amphibian. And again, amphibians and reptiles are different things. But this guy found in the environment too. They have pretty big skulls, actually. So it's a really big animal. And like I said, they are like top salamander. But they're not salamanders because true salamanders don't evolve like the Jurassic period. But the idea is that you're seeing these in the same time period. And there's probably more information, but I can't think of it right now. So, yeah, that's it. I'll see you soon.